Welcome to this video lecture. We are continuing our discussion on file exchange and communication between platforms, including Python scripts, CSV files, and other databases, as well as MATLAB and Simulink. So in the last video lecture, we talked about this flow of data that we wanted to achieve, or we could generate set points in a Python script. Ultimately, this will be an optimization script, but for today's lecture, we're just going to be generating random numbers. We want Python to generate these set points. We want to store that in our quote-unquote database, which we'll just use a CSV file for now. We want Python to be able to store this data and also generate a flag, just a flag file that'll show up in that Windows folder. Once that flag is apparent, we want MATLAB and Simulink to take that signal, allowing this program to run a Simulink simulation, gather that data, push the data back into our database, and then we would delete that flag file, which would tell Python to run again. In just this particular video, we're just going to cover the Python part of this. So we want to write a Python script that can generate some random set points, store those in a CSV file, and then generate this flag. Separately, we'll have another MATLAB script that is going to be checking for that flag so that it knows how to run. So basically, this flag file is a signal between the two programs telling it which should be running. So once the Python script is complete, it'll produce the flag file, and then that flag file will be deleted by our MATLAB script, and that'll tell Python to run again. So again, we're just going to focus on this half of it, and we'll be manually deleting this flag file to make sure that this Python part of the code works. So what I want to do, I want to keep this class fairly conceptual, but I do want to introduce a new skill, and that is helping to develop code using large language models, in particular ChatGPT. So what ChatGPT is really good at is it can help with some of the really detailed syntax that you might need for some of the commands that might be harder for a human to remember. And what I found that ChatGPT maybe isn't quite as good at is the overall flow of the code. So we're going to try and give ChatGPT a nice prompt so that it can generate code for us. So specifically, what I want ChatGPT to do is I want it to write a Python script that generates a uniform random number between 0 and 20 for a variable that we're going to call q underscore set point. This will eventually be like our heating set point. So then before each iteration, we want the script to check the current folder for a file called run.flag. This is that flag file. So this file basically doesn't do anything. It's a dummy file. You can't even open it, but it's kind of a signal between the two programs. So if this file does not exist, then we want our Python script to run. So it should write this data to the CSV file, and then it should generate this run.flag file. So if the run.flag file does not exist, then it should wait for 1 second. So again, our code is going to be checking in this folder. If the flag file is not there, it will run, it will do the CSV writing, and then ultimately want it to create that file. So let's add another line to our prompt. So we're saying the script should write these values into a setpoints.csv file 1 line at a time with a timestamp, and it should pause for 1 second before proceeding. After writing 1 row of values into the CSV file, it should create a flag called run.flag to indicate that the Python script has run for that iteration. The timestamps start on January 1st, 2025 and increment by 1 day at each iteration. So basically we want this Python file to be continuously running. It'll execute every 1 second. However, if the flag file is there, that means it has already written those particular set points to the CSV, so it just needs to wait for 1 second and then try again. So over time, we want to set both our Python script and a future MATLAB script on this 1 second timer, or whatever period we decide is best, so that Python can run. When it has finished, it'll create the flag file. The MATLAB file will check if that flag file is there to know if it should run or not. So let's go ahead and see how ChatGPT does with our code generation. So it takes it a little bit to start generating this code, so we'll just give it a moment. Okay, so ChatGPT has now run and it has automatically popped up this code editing uh, little split screen, which is actually super handy. So this has created a Python file for us called random set points. So here Python is importing all the different tools we would need, and it's creating these variables with our different file names, so our setpoints.csv, our run.flag. It gives us this start date, and then it gives us this iteration number to start on. So it creates this while loop. So in this while loop, it says, check if this flag file exists. So if that flag file exists, it just sleeps and then comes back later. If the flag file is still there, it will just keep waiting until the flag file is gone. Sorry, this code will run only if the flag file is gone. Okay, so here we generate our random number, we define our timestamp on that particular day. This is a command to write a header. So basically, if the CSV file does not exist, it's going to create that CSV file. Here, it's going to do the CSV writing. So it's going to write our timestamp and our Q set point here, and it's going to write this one row at a time. Finally, this is the flag file generation. So after the CSV file has been written, ideally this is going to then generate our flag file. So it's going to say, okay, I wrote my set points, here's the flag. It's going to tell the Python script, don't run anymore until that flag file is deleted. And we're going to rely on our MATLAB code to delete that file, indicating that our simulation has run on the other end. So let's see if this works. Number one rule of coding is to expect things to not work exactly right. So I'm going to go here to a Jupyter notebook that I've already created. I'm just going to copy and paste my code into here. I'm going to go ahead and click run. So now in Jupyter notebook, notice that this star means that my code is currently running and I'm currently waiting on what's happening. So I'm going to now go here to my Windows folder and see what has happened. So these two files are brand new. So notice that they were just created. So I have this setpoints.csv file has been created, and I have this run.flag file has been created. So let's open up this setpoints file. You might have problems with this if your code is actively trying to write something in there. So this does create just this one line with my timestamp of January 1st and my Q set point at 0.75. That's great, but for some reason my code is not working anymore, or my code is paused. And so why is it paused? That's because this run.flag file is still present. So one of the flaws perhaps with my code is that it doesn't really tell me what's going on. It just says I'm kind of hung up here waiting for something to happen. So let me go here. I'm going to manually delete this run.flag file. Eventually we'll have our MATLAB program that deletes this as it runs, and we'll establish communication between these two programs. But for now, I'm just going to delete this manually and see what happens. Okay, so I delete it. Oh, and then once it's deleted, that tells my Python script, okay, that file is deleted, I need to run again. So we should see a new value, a new row of timestamp and set point being written in here. So we do see our new set point being written in here, which is great. So let's close that. I don't want to save it. My code is currently hung up here because it senses the presence of this run.flag, which tells it, okay, stop and wait until this file is gone. So I'm going to do that again. It keeps repopulating it. And depending on your Windows settings, you might not see this file popping back up, in which case you can do it manually by hitting F5. That just refreshes your window. So I'm just doing this manually a few times. I'm kind of simulating what MATLAB will eventually do. So because I've done this for a few times, we should see that it's populating more and more set points into this file. So let's go back and check. Okay, so we've written now these 9 different set points because I've deleted this file 8 different times. Okay, so one thing that our code appears to be missing is that the code it doesn't really go to a set number of days. It's just going to keep running forever. So there's nothing to really terminate this code unless I do it manually. Another thing that is missing is that it doesn't really tell us what's going on. So if I go back to my Jupyter notebook here, notice that it's just running and I have really no feedback on what's happening. So I want to remedy both of those things. I'm going to go ahead and kill my code manually. I'm going to go back to my ChatGPT here. So the reason, the thing that I like about this code editing split screen here in ChatGPT is that I can keep this same code here, but I can go and give ChatGPT some instructions for modifying that code. So I do not have to redo my whole prompt. I can just give it additional instructions. So in this case, I'm going to say, the script should terminate after a certain number of days have been written to the CSV file. So I don't want it to just go indefinitely. I want to give it a finite endpoint. So I'm going to give it that information, and I'll see how the code gets edited. So now we're seeing our code get edited in real time, and let's see what has changed. So great. So now it tells us here we define this variable num underscore days, and it's saying, okay, do this for 30 days. Let's shorten that and make it just 10 days. But notice it has also updated this while loop. So now it's saying while iteration is less than number of days, then keep doing this. So this will keep going until it has written 10 data points into that CSV file. Another thing that I would like to do in this code is I would like to better understand what is happening in the code as it runs. So here I'm just going to give ChatGPT some more instructions. The script should give a message showing that the values have been written to the CSV file, or that the script is waiting for the run.flag to be deleted. So basically I just want to add in some messaging so that I know what's happening with my code and I don't just have to guess or open up files constantly to wait to see what's happening. So now we're going to see that if our code detects the presence of a flag file, it's just going to wait until this file is deleted. And then it gives us this other message. When our data gets written to the CSV, it'll give us sort of a success message. And this last, it says the flag file indicates that the script has run for this iteration. So it's going to give us a couple messages there when we do this successful write to CSV. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code. I'm just going to do a wholesale Control A, delete all this, and Control V. This is because I've already been editing my code with ChatGPT. So another thing I'm going to go do here is I want to start over. So I'm just going to delete my old setpoints file and this run.flag file so I can start fresh here. So I'll go ahead and click run. Okay, so now we can see a little bit better in real time what's happening. So I did my initial write to CV with this timestamp and this value for my Q set point. And now it's not running because well, the code is running, but it's not writing anything to CSV because of that presence of the run.flag file. So I'm going to go back to Windows and do this again. I'm simulating what ultimately MATLAB will do. I'm just going to delete this guy a few times. So ultimately, what I'm doing manually will have our MATLAB program doing automatically, and we'll get these two scripts running simultaneously and talking to each other via the data in the CSV files, and then this dummy flag file will be a good way to signal between. Okay, so I've reached the end. I should have written 10 points to my CSV file. Let's go check the messages. So I wrote that first line to my CSV file. Then here I wrote my next line, then I waited for a little bit, I wrote the next line. Remember, this is all happening pretty quickly every 1 second, and I just wasn't fast enough to delete that file. Okay, so we should see that all the way up to January 10th got written into this CSV file, and I can go verify the CSV file, which for me just opens in Microsoft Excel, and I can see I do indeed have my data points all written here. So stay tuned. In the next videos, we're going to talk about getting this complementary MATLAB script that can run, perhaps even run a Simulink model and feed that data back into our CSV file.